The special session ended last week as lawmakers voted to move forward on their prison plan they've been working on for months and months. And with us to talk about that this morning is Senator Greg Reed, the President Pro Tem of the Senate. Senator Reed, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jack. Glad to be with you.
Good to have you here. Let's talk about what you guys got accomplished last week in your view. Tell us what you think the significance of this is and how it squares up with the mandate from the feds right now to fix Alabama's prison problems. Do you think this accomplishes most of those goals?
Well, I think it does. I first want to congratulate my colleagues in the Alabama Senate as well as the House of Representatives and the governor's office. I said early on in this process as we were meeting, this is going to be a three-leg stool. All three of us have to work together. So it's our plan, not your plan or my plan. We were able to accomplish that working together. Republicans, Democrats, House, Senate, the governor's administration. A lot of hard work, a lot of review, a lot of study, education on the issues, recognizing where we are in this very difficult circumstance. I think this is a topic that's focused on public safety. Obviously, we want to keep bad people in prison, okay? But we also have federal court orders, several of those that Alabama is suffering under currently. We have a lawsuit from the Department of Justice. So there's several issues that we were looking at that we really had to focus on trying to have a solution. And I think we've come up with a really good one, very conservative in its fiscal approach, but is able to accomplish the things that the federal government says are important for us to work on.
And some of those include adding space, more hiring of staff members. Not all of that is made public by ADOC. When you look at some of the things that were realized, it seemed, through the session, which was that after this is all said and done, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like we're kind of net equal on bed space for inmates and things once old prisons are torn down and new ones are built. When you look at some of the mandates from the federal government on adding space and hiring staff and the deadline that's coming up in February to do that, how do you feel about the process? Are we on the right track as a state to get that done? Because that's a big undertaking for any organization. If we had to hire 2,000 people at our company right now, where do we stand on those efforts?
Well, I think we've recognize that some of those things, as far as court orders, we were not going to be able to comply with just because the situation would not allow it. For instance, to try and work on disability-related requirements under court order in a concrete structure that is 55 years old is just almost impossible. So several of those elements, the goal here was not to build more prison space. It was to be able to answer the issues that the court felt like were the most egregious issues in Alabama's
like
prison system. That's right.
Okay.
Looking at overcrowding issues, how do you better house the inmates? How do you better treat them, physical health, mental health? What is the opportunity to make things safer in that violence is an issue in a prison anywhere, but how do you make things safer for not only inmates, but also those that work at the prison, those that are the prison guards, those that are spending their careers working on making sure that things are appropriate inside the fence. So those were issues that we dealt with. I feel like we made a great step forward. The other thing that was very important, if you look at the legislation, we're funding phase one, which is going to be 2 men's prison facilities. But if you look at the findings that we worked on that are in the statute, it gives a good pathway for phase 2, even a phase 3, in being able to answer other issues that are important in being able to accomplish all that the federal government has said or could say are going to be issues that are important for Alabama to accomplish. Now, other legislators in the future will have a decision on deciding how they want to fund phases in the future and how they want to change things, but that'll be their decision. We just did a lot of work, put it all on paper, have a good start with phase 1, being able to fund it in a very appropriate way that includes bonded resource, includes additional general fund resource, and also some federal resource that's available for a very cost-effective solution for Alabama.
You've heard the criticism of the way it's paid for. Some people felt like that federal COVID dollars that were maybe intended at one point for certain things. Now states have the ability to do what they want with that money. Alabama's done this with a portion of it. How do you answer the criticism that people say, well, that could have been spent on so many things? Why this?
Well, the issue with those resources, and if you look carefully at how those dollars come to each state, there is a revenue replacement element that's there, which basically says The state lost revenues as a result of coronavirus. That's true in Alabama and in every other state. The replacement of those dollars come directly to the budget of each state, and they choose what is the most significant issue in the state that they would have spent those dollars on if they had had them and the virus had not been ours to deal with. So that resource is what we're talking about. We still have what will come in January, in my opinion, an allocation of what will be another $1.7, $1.8 billion that will go to all kinds of issues, from small businesses to unemployment insurance to hospitals, nursing homes, all those kinds of issues that we will use in reimbursement and use in things associated specifically with the virus. But these resources were revenue replacements specifically to be used for what are the things that are the most important related to decisions by legislators on issues within their states. And we felt like, obviously, with the court orders we were dealing with, all of the challenges and problems, this was as major a topic as we could find, within the state of Alabama in regards to using those replacement resources.
When you look at the way the prison system is run here, obviously journalists gripe about the lack of, in our view, in some cases, transparency in terms of decision making. Staffing numbers are not always made public, or there's a lot of information that I think it's fair to say is not easily accessible to the public in some cases. Do you think there is room for improvement in the transparency of the way the prison system is run, or are you satisfied with the way it's run right now?
Well, one of the things that is a part of this legislation goes to the point of additional reporting, details that would become available to the legislature, information about the operation of Alabama's prison system that are a part of discussions that we had early on. One thing that is always very important to legislators is, if we're going to allocate resources to do something, how do we measure to make sure that it is accomplishing the goal? How is the accountability for what we're trying to accomplish? And so there's several things in the legislation that give additional elements of reporting from the department that allows the legislature and the governor to be able to know and understand, hey, we're meeting the mark here. These are the goals. These are the things that we've tried to accomplish.
In terms of, though, when we read of these of stabbings, or there are cases where inmates die mysteriously, do you agree that the public should, generally speaking, have a right to know circumstances surrounding some of those things, both for the safety of the inmates and of the people who are recruited to come work for ADOC?
I think that the Alabama Department of Corrections needs to be accountable to the governor, to the legislature, to the people of Alabama, and how the prisons are operated. Obviously, there are issues that are happening that, with these new prisons coming online, are going to be improved significantly, to where you look at the ways that prisoners are going to be able to be housed, things that are going to be different according to some of the requirements of federal court orders, to where you have a larger number of cells for prisoners versus the idea of them being in a dormitory setting. And you can imagine, when you've got hundreds of violent criminals in a dormitory setting, sometimes that issue becomes a little bit out of hand, and those kinds of things are going to happen. But the fact to your question, should that information be available? Of course. We need to all be looking for ways to make sure that the process is going to be more accountable moving forward, and I think the legislation offers some ways to accomplish that. Speaking
of looking to the future, there are folks waking up this morning considering maybe driving across state lines to buy a lottery ticket. The Powerball, I believe, is at about $670 million. Every time that happens, the discussion comes back up of, will Alabamians get to vote on at least the option for a lottery of some sort in this state? We've seen various pushes from various politicians. Where do you fall on that issue? Would you like to have at least the option for voters to decide again at some point?
I think it's very important for the people of Alabama to make that decision. The question is not, do we have gaming in Alabama? The question is, are we going to control it? Are we going to regulate it? Are we going to collect on it for the benefit of the people of Alabama? Whether that's a lottery or some expansion related to what's going on in casinos in our state. I've been an advocate already and voted my conscience on being able to allow the people the chance to be able to vote on this. If you look back at the last regular session, the Alabama Senate worked diligently in coming up with a comprehensive package that allowed an opportunity for the people of Alabama to vote once and for all on not only are we going to do this and how would we regulate it, but what are some of the options of where some of those resources would go, whether it be broadband internet access, which was discussed, ideas of scholarships that are important for young folks that are going to college or junior college or getting training in different areas. So I think that there will be more discussion about that moving forward. And I will be supportive in a robust discussion about that as we continue to look to the future on making those decisions or allowing the people of Alabama to make that decision.
Is there a simple answer, in your opinion, on why it hasn't happened by now? Why there always seems to be something stopping it from ending up on a ballot for the Alabamian to decide on?
Jack, this is a topic where there are not simple answers. You've got a lot of folks that are very interested. There's a lot of push and pull in regards to how are we going to do it, how do we regulate it, where does the money go? Those things are very important questions. So it's not a simple topic, but it is one that we have seen in the Alabama Senate. We've been able to tackle and be able to come up with a package that was able to pass the body and be able to move in a positive direction. I think we will once again be focused on that effort. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but look, the people of Alabama did not send us to Montgomery to do things only that are easy, as evident by the prison topic we just reviewed. These are hard topics, they're difficult issues, but we want to be up to the task and serve those that sent us. I think we will talk about gaming in Alabama again.
I've heard from a lot of our viewers who laughed when the governor said, well, we're going to put a commission together to study this. They said, well, we can show you right now the revenue that this brings into other states, the way Georgia's done it for so long. And I guess that's the root of my question. I understand your support of the conversation. What more needs to be learned, I guess, is what I'm really asking. I understand it's complex, but in so many ways it seems so simple. Is it more simple than maybe we give it credit for?
Well, I think it's simple from the standpoint of, do we need to allow the people of Alabama the chance to vote on it? That is a simple answer, and the answer to that question, in my opinion, is yes. But there's a lot of other topics that are there. The topic on being able to study this, the 800-page report that the commission created at the governor's direction in the work that we did in the last session in the Senate was invaluable for us to understand, how do we regulate this? How's it done in other states? What are the details of that? What are the processes? What about things that are changing nationwide? You have different elements from lotteries in the way that they're different. And sports betting and things that have been ruled on at the federal level that are now topics for discussion. So the 800-page report that came to us from the governor was very helpful in being able to understand a lot of the complexities of this topic.
Okay. Good conversation with Senator Greg Reed. We thank you so much for your time. It's good to have you here. You are welcome back on CBS 42 anytime. We thank you for making time for us today, and we will be right back with more here on the CBS 42 Morning News.